Great.
Yeah, I
We're
guess we
good.
are on recording. So, yeah. So, good evening, our lovely viewers. Hope everyone is safe and fine. Welcome to another interesting session on mental health, which apparently isn't live this time, but as we always do, we try to make it as informative as possible. So today, as we have here with us Sriya, our mental coach, and a special guest who is Kate Moulton, who is a self mastery and mindset coach. She guides one to get out of the head and into the heart to create an impact one feels to make. Welcome, Kate, ma'am.
Hello. Hi, Prateek. Hi, Sriya. Thank you for having me here. I'm very excited to talk to you guys today. Thank you.
We are glad to have you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Very much excited to have you.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Sorry, there's like a little delay in the connection. So I sorry.
Okay. That's because we are in India and you're in America.
Right. So
I believe it's bright morning out there.
it is. It's nice and sunny today. It's like 9:30 in the
Ah,
morning
that's
here, and
great.
it's
That's
yeah.
great.
Is it dark where you are
It's
right
evening in
now?
India and it's kind of really hot over here. Yeah, it's kind of very dark.
Mm, yeah. So I'm going to
Yeah,
bring
and
you
it's
the
hot.
light.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
true. That's definitely gonna happen today.
Awesome.
So
So
can we
Prateek,
begin
would you
with
like
our
to
Q
start?
and
Yeah.
yeah. So without wasting any further time, we can just begin by asking our questions. So firstly, Kat, do you believe in this new paradigm shift we are entering that our energy is our currency in the world, as you say? So could you tell us more about it?
Sure. Yeah, that's something I've been saying or writing in my own notes for like since right before the pandemic started. We are in like a big shift, and that just kind of made it real for a lot of us. But we live in a world where most people operate from a sense of fear and doubt and lack of trust and hustle and push and go, and that we have to just know everything and figure it out. And, that's taken us really far, but we are really shifting. Consciousness is raising, and there's a lot of people, becoming more and more attuned to that and aligned with it. And we're we're starting to live from a place where that our energy, like how we feel inside, is really going to attract or repel, people to us, opportunities, circumstances, and live more and more from a place of allowing and trusting and collaboration instead of competition. So I really feel like, things have been shifting and more people are leaning into that shift. And that's why it's so important, as you introduced me, to get out of the energy of just being in our head and overthinking and overdoing, and come into our heart, come into our body, so that we can really hear the messages and trust what it is like we're inspired to do, not just the things we should do. So I don't know if that makes sense, but the more we lean into that, I think the more we can actually accomplish in the world for the greater good. It's not about not doing anything. It's just doing what we value and what's really important.
Right. So like Kat, you just said that uh, most of the time when we are overthinking and a lot of things are happening, we take into our heart, right? And that affects our energy.
Yeah. So, I don't know what it was like for you guys, but I grew up in a home where it was really valued. Like everything was so important about what we think and how our mind worked and getting everything right and learning and doing. And there was a lot of value in that. But somewhere along the way, like the messages that I was hearing about the things I really felt I knew or wanted to do just got lost. And I kind of, you know, buried them, buried them for lack of a better word. And I feel like so many of us have been taught to do that, like to not trust the messages or the wisdom of the body and the heart. And, it's not like one over the other, discount the mind and just listen here, or discount the heart and only listen to the thoughts of the mind. But how can we use them to our benefit? So, how can we get into our body, trust what we're knowing, so that when we're in that overthinking mode, because when we think, sometimes we start overthinking, we start ruminating, we're like, I got to get this right, I got to do it this way, and we just fixate. Whereas if we can just stop and breathe or move our body or do something where we're not thinking, then the answer comes to us like more knowingly. Like the wisdom just shows up and then we know what to do. So it's not about never thinking, it's about not overthinking. And not getting caught up in that spin or that monkey mind, so that we can slow down and really hear the answers and the knowledge and the knowing. So I don't know. That's
So, so like Kat, I think this is out of what we had planned for, but I would like to ask you this thing that in the present moment, right now, me,
mm-hmm.
being a psychologist and a therapist, many people say that you do not undergo anything, you should not, and these things are there. So I am at present undergoing a lot of, limitations, the society things, like you said. So people are telling me you should be doing this and you should not be doing this. And I have my own body's calling, like my body is saying that there are few things I want to do. I really want to say right now, I really want to ask questions to few people, clarify things in my life. But when we know the other person is really cold hearted, and they really do not care or care to answer you or think about you at that moment when you are overthinking or you are unable to control your thoughts. So what should we do?
So I'd like to really keep it simple, especially in the beginning, is just, I would invite you to step back and just take a breath and see what it's feeling like in your body, like right now, as you talk about this situation. Like, how does it feel? And does it feel like heavy and icky, or does it feel light and vibrant? Like, what does it feel? And
It feels heavy.
okay, it feels heavy. And so does that feel good for
No, it
you?
does not.
Okay. So that's a real indicator of that, a place that we don't want to be and don't want to stay. And, one of the things I heard you say is like, there are people that, they're maybe cold hearted, or we can't like ask them. So for me, it's not even about the other person. It's like getting in touch with that energy in your body. And you said it's heavy, it doesn't feel good. How can you shift that, for yourself, not about the other person? Like, when you take that breath and close your eyes, you could even put your hands on your heart and just be like, why is it making me feel this way? Like, I start to ask questions and get really curious and go inside and ask yourself these, you said you want to ask people questions. So ask yourself, why am I not asking them? And just listen and see what shows up. Like, I can't give you the answer. If you just ask yourself that and see what comes without overthinking it, like first thing that comes to mind or comes to body, go with that first thing and ask yourself, like, get curious and more questions. And, ask yourself questions like, what is it costing me to not ask these questions to the people that I want to ask? And if you can get to the place of that, you're going to ask them, and no matter what their response is to the question, that you're good with that, because you honored yourself by asking, right? And it's not about them, it's all about you. And then when you do that, see, what does that feel like in your body, you know and you could even close your eyes and imagine right now, like, what would it feel like in my body if I asked that question?
Okay, let me try that.
Okay.
Okay. So how would I feel if I asked that question, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think I would feel very uneasy and in a very uncomfortable space.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, feel like being judged.
Mm. So those are all really, I think, normal feelings to feel, right? And sometimes when we are uncomfortable, that's when we grow. So now that you've identified that, so it would be uncomfortable to ask. Now you have a choice point. Are you going to ask anyways, or are you not going to ask? Like, what are you going to do? What are you going to choose for you? You know, and how does it feel like inside if you don't ask? Like, if you let the fear and the judgment stop you, like, how does that feel for you?
So if the fear and the judgment part is there, and if I'm unable to clarify my things, it makes me feel it makes me feel restless.
Okay. And all right, so that's good information for yourself. What can you do for yourself to release that restless feeling?
What did I?
So what could you do for yourself to kind of release that restless feeling?
Stay alone.
Okay, stay alone. And in that alone, like, what would you do? What would you start?
Connect with God.
Okay, so that's great. Yeah. So when you connect with God, do you get more peace or more information for yourself? Yeah. So that's a beautiful practice. And so if you take the time to do that, maybe you'll get the answer for yourself when you're ready to ask this person. Like, or maybe should I not at all? Is it completely not safe? Is it not worth my time and energy? Or do I need to get myself grounded in a safer place so that I can ask, so that if they judge me, I'm okay with that, because it's not about me, it's all about them. And I think your practice is beautiful. So if you keep trusting in that more and building that inner strength, because a lot of this is about practice, because it's not comfortable to always step outside our comfort zone and like do something that we don't think we should do, or that we know is going to be awkward, and we know it might face upset or judgment or criticism from other people. That isn't comfortable. But the more we ground in ourselves, in our energy, in our heart, and who we are, and trust that knowledge, like when you connect with God, that information from the divine, when we can step into trusting that more, it just strengthens our resolve. And then we can take that inspired action of when is the right time to ask these questions to these people. Because maybe the time isn't right now, but it might not be never. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yes, it does.
And you're smiling right now. So,
I'm feeling much lighter, actually.
okay. So that's awesome. Do you want to share more about that lighter feeling?
So I had the heaviness in my heart, like I told you in the beginning, and a lot of thoughts were coming. So as in when I explored and got aware about my feelings, and like the way you talked, I was connecting with it more and more, and I'm feeling lighter. I have less thoughts now.
Right. So when we feel lighter, that's really like an amazing feeling, right? And then we can just, that's when we get to those choice points. If we make the decisions in the choice point when we're feeling lighter, oftentimes we're going to make a choice that aligns with us more and propels us forward. Instead of when we make them from that heavy, dark place and that scared place, sometimes we lean into the choices that are not as optimal. But there's no right or wrong, and there's no judgment. It just is. So if we can start to shift that it just is, and we learn from that experience, so maybe you made a choice from the darkness or the heaviness, and it didn't, go the way you wanted to. We can always remember that as well, and be like, the next time we have a choice point. Well, how did I feel, and how did that work out for me when I leaned into the heaviness? And how did it feel, and how did it work out for me when I leaned into the lightness? And then continue that practice of making choices or decisions from there, and just see how it goes. Like, have a little fun with it and play with it, and that play energy really lightens it. And I had to learn that the hard way. It took me a long time. Like, it's
So my
just
next question is that, so can you tell us about your experience that made you shift to this understanding of energetic frequency?
okay. So for a little context, I started studying some of this stuff probably when you were really, really little. So in 1996, I went to massage school, and I also did like my first Reiki. And that's when I started reading some books about this and playing with it, playing with the energy of psychometry. Like when you hold, so like I have a bracelet here, when you hold an object and you pick up energy from it, or thoughts or impressions, I started working in that realm. And then I got into the heaviness of, ooh, I shouldn't be doing this. All my training, all society, I should go home and I should get a real job. And, what I really wanted to do at the time was go to an energy healing school. I don't know if anyone's familiar with Barbara Brennan's Hands of Light and Healing. It wasn't as known back then, and I'm hearing a lot of it now. And, for a while I was sitting with the thought of regret. I'm like, where would I have been if I trusted that inside and gone to that school? Like, where would my knowledge be about energy? But I've had to let go of that judgment as well, because I wasn't ready. I did eventually, move back. I was living in Texas at the time. I moved back to Massachusetts. I got a real job in a company, did the 9 to 5 because I should. And it didn't really feel good. I can tell you that, but I didn't have the conscious awareness to like really be mindful of what was going on, in my body. I just know that I didn't like doing that, and it didn't bring me any joy. It didn't further my career along. It didn't really serve me in any ways of like what we define as, we should be doing as a career path or as a person, at least here in the States. I don't know what it's like in India, but in my family, I should have been, doing more, making my career go further, and didn't matter how I felt. So I stopped leaning into those I dabbled in it. I studied more things. I studied polarity therapy. I studied Reiki further, but I always did the things that I was supposed to do and should do. So it wasn't like a full bang on awakening of this energy thing. It was like I played with it. I stepped away with it. It was like a dance back and forth. And when I had my children, my youngest, I have 3 teenagers of my own. My youngest is going to be 16 next week. That's when I really started to lean more into the shoulds and the darker side, because I wasn't sleeping, and I really left all the things I knew about energy kind of on the table, or not even on the table, put it on the back burner, and did everything that I was supposed to do, and got caught up in this storm of doubt and fear and anxiety, and not sleeping in other circumstances really kind of fostered that. So I would say I moved away for a while, but as my kids started to get older and I had been misdiagnosed with mental health issues. I mean, I had some. I had after my daughter was born, and this is where some of the shift happened. I had a really bad case of postpartum depression, but it was misdiagnosed and labeled as bipolar disorder and other things. And I'd also had some PTSD that had been misdiagnosed. And so it was in that time that when someone told me, you're going to be on medication forever, and I was on medication for a short time. I mean, there is a time and a place. I'm not dismissing it, but there was this little voice inside of me that said, no, I'm not, and you're wrong. But I didn't know how to articulate it as much. So I just started leaning into doing more research again for myself. And, as often as possible, trusting myself, but I didn't. It was like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, or 1 step forward, 2 steps back. And I really had to start studying again so many things for myself, not just about energy, but about health, about nutrition, about, I fell into coaching because of that. I wasn't ever planning to become a coach. My children during that time and myself, we were all diagnosed with food allergies and asthma. And it was like, we lived in a house where how can 5 people have asthma and food allergies that never had it before? I mean, my husband and one of my kids did have asthma before that, but there were a lot of underlying issues going on. And we had a lot of low-level carbon monoxide in the house, but people didn't believe me. And it was that going back to that trusting, like I would hear or pick up information that said, check this out. There is a problem. But when other people couldn't see it, they're like, you're crazy. And it turned out in the long run that we were having those issues. And that's when we found that out for sure, that was really validating. And that was really powerful shift for me, that I was going to continue to move away from all the things that I should believe in and should do, and lean into the messages I was getting and what I really wanted, like what I was being called, like you have these questions you want to ask people. It was same in the sense that I didn't have it all mapped out what I wanted to do, but I kept feeling like I want to ask this to someone. I want to know this. I had these nudges inside, and I just started to lean into them more. But it took me a long time and I'm really only beginning to fully embrace some of it now. It's been like a decade of learning and practicing and playing and experimenting with some of the things that I believe, and aligning it with information that's out there. So it's been a long process. And I will say, my 3 teenagers have been my greatest teachers, in how they respond to me, in how they, their energy shows up in reaction to how I've been, into how the world is changing. I know, Sriya, when we talked last week briefly, like I was really excited for you because at 28, you're at that age where I was looking at going into this school and I chose not to go. And I was like, where would I be if I would? So like, I think your generation is so incredibly fortunate that you're not second guessing as much. like you might be a little, but you're stepping more and more into it. This generation is so much more open than mine was. And so many women I know and so many people are coming out now, coming out of the closet as healers and as, you know, energy workers, and so many labels we can put on that too, where, you know, it was a big effort and a lot of hiding, and you guys are just, you're just starting to step into it so much sooner. And I think that the shift that we're in is like where the world is going. Like you guys are going to lead the way, and it's really exciting. So I'm just sorry, I don't want
I
to keep
agree.
talking. I'm just excited for you guys and for the world, like how this is going to continue to open up.
That's so
Well,
inspiring. Thank you so much.
well, it's definitely going to inspire a lot of people, like those teenagers to, do something they like. Your own story is going to inspire them a lot. And definitely, I feel Shreya is going to have a great teacher like you presently. And yeah, she's going to love it.
Ah, thank you. I think she's, you know, she's a beautiful soul, and so are you, Prateek. We never have had the opportunity to meet through today, but when you're
Thank you
talking,
so
I can
much.
feel like your
This means
energy. Um, and you guys are just lovely. And I think you're right. Like when these, when our teenagers or our youth, when people start to listen to that voice inside of what it is I really want to do, you know, and trust that and follow that more, you know, they're happier and more joyful, and we can bring more creative things to the world when we do that. I mean, sometimes we still need to maybe be in a job for a while that we don't love. I'm not saying like everybody go quit their job today, but like if we start to do these other things and lean into them, we can make shifts, you know? So I'm glad that you guys are talking to your generation about that, and can't wait to see where it goes.
Definitely, there's a, very bright future ahead. So my next question would be, we often hear about energy frequency and emotional state being correlated. So could you please help us understand this with your own experience?
Okay, with my own experience. So, in my own experience, when I was in my second coach training in 2012, I was introduced to the work of David R. Hawkins, like the map of consciousness. I don't know if you're familiar. That really started to break it down for me in a way that my brain could understand. I mean, there's so many probably ways we can do it, but the map of consciousness, and he, you know, he writes like there's everything has a vibration. You know, everything has a frequency, whether it's this cup or an emotion or the trees, like everything is resonating at something. And he did this work where he's like certain emotions that we feel have a certain vibration. So, you know, if we are in a state of shame and we are stuck there, like that is the lowest resonating vibration, right? And some of the higher ones being this joy or love. And there's so many in between. So one of the things that I took from that work is, you know, we're all human, and it's so normal to have all of these emotions like shame, doubt, fear, apathy, anger, courage, love, joy. And we can go into any of them at any point. The problem is when we get stuck in the lower vibrations, right? So if we are stuck in what a woman I've been introduced lately to calls, you know, a shame storm or a guilt storm. I love how she expresses that.
yeah.
You know, when we are stuck in those storms, then we're not able to make these, you know, choices that align with who we really are. So some of this emotion being energetic, like I really believe like our emotions set our energetic frequency. So when we can get into what these emotions are and like we start to know ourselves and we can shift out of them, then we can like change internally. So for example, in the map of consciousness, courage, it vibrates at a level of 200, right? And that is the game changing frequency. Like below that are the desire, fear, doubt, apathy, guilt, shame. There's more. And what we want to do is continue to not always align and be in those darker or lower emotions. You know, like I said, we all have them, but it's how do we get out of them and not stay stuck in them? And so some of that is just by asking questions, like getting quiet and asking questions. I got to our point when I was learning this and doing the work that I'm like, there's got to be more to it than this. There's got to be a lot more to it than just question asking. And I stepped away from it, but I've gone back to that is one of the most powerful things, you know. And then asking the questions to shift the energy, like, you know, when I asked you a few questions and then you felt a little lighter, but they The other way that I do it and believe that we set our emotional frequency and shift it is by movement and moving our body. And I can talk a lot more about that. If someone asks, I don't want to get into it, but we can change our emotional set point by moving, because everything is energy, and energy wants to move, energy wants to flow. And so these feelings are, and it manifests into physical pain, it just feels stuck in the body, heavy in the body, right? So we just want to be able to give ourselves space to shift into the higher vibration. So when we get to courage, and the other thing is courage is heart, and that's why I like to work with getting out of the head and into the heart. So we get into that heart energy, and we are flowing more with those in those higher vibrations, you know. And when we begin to get in touch with our body and what it feels like, then we can notice for ourselves like where we're stuck or where we're resonating, and then ask the question even consciously, do I really want to be there? You know, is it serving me? Do I want to be stuck in these energies, or do I want to be in those moments where it feels lighter, where it feels good, where it feels happy? And then it goes back to choice, you know. So I really think we could talk more on it, but our emotions really set our energetic vibration, and part of this work is really knowing ourselves and knowing how to shift our vibration and choosing to do so, you know, because it really, we all have free will, we all have choice, and you know, what is it that we want? And that question alone can shift our energy. I mean, does that make sense, Prateek, or like shine some light on it
Absolutely,
for
it
you?
does.
Yeah.
That's why we exercise, and we move, and that
Mm-hmm.
movement helps us to get through our thoughts and everything.
Energy
It
moving.
definitely helps.
Yeah, and it helps me. And so I have to tell you, like, Sriya sent me a couple of the questions that you wanted to ask ahead of time, and I sat with them and I took notes, and the old me would have just written every answer down, like, you know, boom, 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 boom. This is all the stuff I want to say. This is how I'm going to say it. I got to memorize it. And I'm like, you know what? That just doesn't work for me anymore. I mean, I kept a couple highlighted things, but what I did was I moved. So I turned on music that I like, and I chanted and I danced and I moved and I let the energy flow. And, you know, and I asked, I connected like you did, Sarah. I'm like, give me the words. Like, what am I, you know, what should I say in that sense? Like, what do you want me to say? What is the message? And I'm not going to overthink it. I'm just going to let myself tap into that flow and show up. But, you know, and bring together all the things I have studied, and, you know, and the things that I believe, but do it from that motion place. Because that works for me. Maybe it doesn't work for everybody, but
Like actually, you when you told me, no, I'm going to let it go with the flow. That was the thing. I said, "Acha, this lady is like me, so I'm also one of that person." I just let it go with the flow. I cannot have a rigid plan for myself that okay, this is what I have to blah 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 blah. No, I
mm-hmm.
cannot do that. It should go with the flow.
Right. And I'm leaning more and more into that and the value in it, because when I don't go with the flow, like, and I try to have it all scripted, then I get really stiff. And then my energy shuts down, it contracts. And I start thinking in my head, oh, but I should be saying this. And the whole message is lost. Right. So I'm like, that might work for some people. You know, we're all different. There's no one right way. But for me, yeah, the scripts, I'm like, I just got to get rid of them and show up as I am, and just trust that the right people will hear the message, or the right people will come to me and work with me, whether it's in coaching or in real estate or whatever, and just have that trust. And yeah, so I like that we are relatable. Thank you.
Yes.
It's fun. I just wish I
So,
learned it at your age, but
but now you can see from my lens.
exactly. So that's awesome. Oh, cool.
So, well, Kat, I think we're running short of time now.
Okay.
So, before ending the entire thing, one message you would like to give to the viewers?
Okay. So I have I have a couple, but one is get curious. So that would be my biggest message if I can invite anybody to get curious about yourself and what your beliefs are, and start asking yourself these powerful, important questions. Like, ask yourself, what is it that I believe? Why do I believe it? And is that my energy, or is that someone else's? Are they really my beliefs? Do they align with me? So I would just really invite people to get curious about themselves and get curious about other people. You know, you talked about judgment. Instead of judging everything, you know, get curious and find out about other people, or why they're asking what they're asking, or if you see somebody that, you know, lives life the way you want, you know, in a vibrant place, or is, you know, making a certain type of income or doing whatever, get curious and find out, ooh, what are they doing, you know, and how does that feel inside, like, to me, and is that, do I want to do something similar or not? So I would just say, get curious and ask questions. That would be the biggest thing. And be okay with asking questions. I don't know what it was like for you, but I grew up in a house where questions were not okay, you know, and so it took me a long time to really get in the flow of that, and that question asking. So
Wow, great. Thank you so much. I think it was very insightful. The curious part when you asked, so I can totally say that I am very curious, and now I can also, I think I have this problem of expressing myself. I think I am working on that part. But the thing you said, no, like curious. So yes, when people are judging me, I'm actually getting more curious. Why are they judging me? So what is going on in their mind? What makes them judge? Is it their own insecurities, or is it my insecurities that I'm attracting it? So I look at it that way.
yeah, no, that's a real, I like that question. Yeah, just keep asking the questions. And, you know, some of the simple questions, and I heard this from someone else and I'd forgotten this question, is what awareness can I have around this? You know, what is it here to teach me? What is it here to show me about myself? You know, what is the lesson? You know, just simple questions like that. And again, don't overthink it. Just whatever message you're getting or hearing, like some people journal it, some people just think it. Begin to trust, like lean into those messages and don't overthink them. Just, and then we can let them go. You know, we don't have to keep them with us. Just let it go. Yeah. And just keep moving, right? Prateek, just keep moving forward and
Yeah,
moving.
just keep moving forward.
Yeah. So anyways, I really thank you both for inviting me here to be here and chat with you guys. It was fun.
Thank you so much.
It was
We
really
had a
nice.
wonderful session today. And it's not only a session, so I think from this entire video people will get to know how a coach works also, because a lot of people has that question in their mind, how does the coaching and entire thing work? So I think you got an insight, a slight insight from my experience with the coach, that how it works
Yeah.
and how the shift happened over few seconds. And yeah, it does take time also to go deep rooted to your issues. So I think here we are going to end, and we're going to come back soon. And if anyone wants to connect to Kat, you can come back at Perself, connect with us, we'll get you connected with her. So
Awesome.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both. Have a
Thank you,
wonderful
Kat.
day, everyone. You're welcome. All
You
right.
too have
Bye
a
for
wonderful
now.
day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.